A child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, a son is Please be seated. My voice won't go there this morning. If you're concerned, I'm on the downside. I'm not spreading. I think I hit the peak on like Tuesday, and maybe it was Monday. I think it was Monday. Anyway, so yes, if my voice isn't here this morning because I had a cold and now I'm working on getting it back. So, we have read Isaiah chapter 7 verses 10 through 15. We have read Isaiah chapter 9 verses 1 through 7. Since all three of these verses, all three of these scripture texts this morning are in the same general area, I'm guessing that, by reading 10, you can go back and get 7 and 9 when we hit on those, all right? So I'm going to read chapter 10 because we almost never read this one. I don't mean 10, I meant 11. I was looking at 10. Chapter 11, verses 1 through 10. Then a shoot will spring forth from the stem of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit. And the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, and the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and strength, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord, and he will not judge by what his eyes see, nor make a decision by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he will judge the poor and decide the fairness of the afflicted of the earth, and he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Also, righteousness will be the belt about his loins, and faithfulness the belt about his waist. And the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the kid and the calf, and the young lion and the fatling together. And a little boy will lead them, also the cow and the bear will graze. Their young will lie down together. And the lion will eat straw like the ox. And the nursing child will play by the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child will put his hand on the viper's den. And they will not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. And the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Then it will come about in that day that the nations will resort to the root of Jesse, who will stand as a signal for the people, and his resting place will be glorious. I'm not going to work this morning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Jehovah, and the Word was Jehovah, and he was in the beginning with Jehovah. And all things come into being by him, and apart from him nothing came into being. In him is life, and that life is the light of men. So, when the Lord Sabaoth, when the Lord of hosts told Nathan to speak to David regarding the throne of the kingdom in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 12, he made it clear that David's throne would be Yehoshua's throne. It's actually 2 Samuel 7, 12, and 13, that David's throne would also be Yehoshua's throne. And it would be his throne forever. In Jeremiah 23, Jehovah Tzedakenu, the Lord our righteousness, also made clear that he and the one who would possess that throne were the same. Not two gods. The same. And the one who would possess that throne. So, though the purpose of salvation began at the closing of the gates of Eden and was reiterated by the pronouncement of Noah's righteousness in Genesis chapter 7, and the personification of his righteousness again was declared in Isaiah chapter 7. In Isaiah chapter 7. But there was a war. There was a war against Jerusalem, the seat of the throne of David. And that war had been a long and bitter one and not without consequence. There had been judges. There had been a time of theocracy. There had been judges. There was a time that Jehovah opened up his mind to the ideology of kings because the people were not obedient, because the people could not agree. So in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 1 and verses 10 through 13, we learn that through the split in the kingdom, after Solomon, through the split in the kingdom of Judah, we have Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, the king of Judah, who was told to ask for a sign that he would not be last because he would not believe. If you don't read this whole section together as a unit, you get to the place where you could be convinced that Ahaz was a good king. But that's only because you haven't read all of his bouts, all of his wonderful little toys that he played with. And we have Ahaz, son of Jotham, son of Uzziah. And he was told to ask for a sign that he would not be last because he would not believe. You know, this guy was a piece of work. Obviously, if you were reading the whole story of Ahaz, obviously he thinks that he can outsmart Jehovah Elohim. And he can outsmart him because he was told to pick a sign that would show him the power of Jehovah. But he refused to pick that. He refused to find a test. His comment was, let's see if I can find it here quickly. I will not ask. No, let me go back and begin this at verse 10. Then the Lord spoke again to Ahaz, saying, "Ask for a sign for yourself from the Lord your Jehovah. Make it deep as Sheol and as high as heaven." But Ahaz said, "I will not ask, nor will I test the Lord." And then he said, "Listen, now, O house of David, is it too slight a thing for you to try the patience of men? that you will not try the patience of Jehovah as well. So he picked Jehovah himself picked the sign. And he would provide an irrefutable sign in chapter 7, verse 17, an irrefutable sign that cannot be from anything but the Creator himself. Ahaz was the king over the royal house of David. The king who presently occupied, this is an important thing to understand, he was presently the king who occupied the throne of judgment. Shaphat, the throne of judgment. He was told to listen. When Jehovah was speaking to him, he was told to listen with intent. He needed to understand that although Ahaz thought he had the upper hand, the days of his ending were coming. This could be, right here in verse 9, if you will not believe, you surely shall not last. You surely shall not carry on. Jehovah will dwell in Jerusalem, as Jeremiah would proclaim again in Jeremiah 33, 14, 26. For now, understand that the sign from the truth of the I am of judgment could only come from the one who is the Creator, from the I am who is the Creator. Therefore, Jehovah himself will give forth with a sign that no magician could conjure up out of his trickery. For behold, a virgin will come with child and will bring forth a son, and will call his name Emmanuel. With us is Jehovah. See, we turn that around, and if you don't stop and read it, if you don't understand Hebrew, you don't get it at first. Because we can say Emmanuel, God with us. But you don't understand that L at the end, that's Jehovah. That's God. That's God. Emmanuel. With us is Jehovah. Therefore, the reference to the virgin is specifically aimed at the words in Genesis chapter 24, verses 16 and 43. If you're really, really quick, because it shouldn't be real hard, you jump over there. Genesis chapter 24. Verse 16. And the girl was very beautiful, a virgin, and no man had had relations with her, and she went down to the spring and filled up her jar and came up. You know what that is? Rebekah, the wife of Isaac. Okay? So you got that one. This word in this spot in verse 43, the word is Bethulah. The word is Bethulah. Okay, and then you go over here to verse 43, and it says, Behold, I am standing by the spring. I am standing by the spring, and may it be that the maiden who came out to draw, and to whom I say, please let me drink a little water. Sometimes that word is translated maiden. Sometimes it's translated virgin again. But it's not the same word. Referring to the same person, but not the same word. So behold, a virgin will bring forth a son, and his name will be Emmanuel. The reference to the virgin is specifically aimed at these two. The woman who was determined to be acceptable as the wife for Isaac is referred to in Genesis 24:16 as Bethuel. The one who is Bethuel is a woman of marital age who has never been with a man in any form of intimacy. In verse 43, the word is Alma. The one who is called Alma is one who is veiled, who is private, who is well protected, so that there is never any question of any form of intimacy. They protected their women. Okay, that'll get me in trouble. Moving forward, it is not enough just to know that evil may have occupied the judgment seat. You need to keep that, what we just talked about, the Alma and the Bethuel, you need to keep that in your mind for a minute. Moving forward, it is not enough just to know that evil may have occupied the judgment seat, the throne in the day of Ahaz, because not all those of the house of Judah were righteous in the sight of the I am of judgment. And yet, that I am, that Jehovah, is able to persevere despite the hand of man. Despite the fact that man is duplicitous, despite the fact that man is disobedient, despite the fact that man chooses his own way, Jehovah still calls the throne of David the seat of judgment. The implication of Isaiah chapter 9 verses 1 and 3, not the part that Kelly read this morning, I didn't want to go through all of that, but chapter 9 verses 1 and 3. But there will be no more gloom for her who was in anguish in earlier times. He treated the hand of Nebulon and the land of Nephilah with contempt, but later on he shall make it glorious by the way of the sea. On the other side of the sea, on the other side of Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. Keep that word. And thou shalt multiply the nation. Thou shalt increase their gladness. They will be glad in the presence and the gladness of harvest, and the men will rejoice when they divide the spoil. What do you think that word nation refers to? The implication of Isaiah 9, 1 and 3 is that the promise of salvation is not limited to the sons of Israel. Because those two words, in 1 and 3, in 1 it's the Gentiles, and 3 it's nation, both of those are definitive of the word Goyim. Okay, look back over the verses between the confrontation with Ahaz and the pronouncement on the bringing forth of the male offspring, the hint of an opening to those who would be those who would join the Hebrew Emmanuel. Is still there. In Isaiah chapter 9, verses 1 and 3, he shall make glorious by the way of the sea and the other side of the Jordan, Galilee of the Hagoyim. Speaking with even more emphasis is the atonement in verse 3 as the joy of the nations. That's the same exact word in both places. At the joy of the nations that will be multiplied. Though Isaiah is written to the salvation of the sons of Judah specifically, the coming invitation in Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20, gives us an understanding that the Hebrew cannot ignore the Gentile. The Gentile cannot ignore the Hebrew, and neither one of us can stand in the face of the judgment and say we're better than someone else. Does not say that the Hebrew are not the chosen people. Does not say they do not have a foot in the door, but they are still disobedient. Read the story of Ahaz. Those who are able to listen, those who are able to hear with intelligent understanding will have the yoke of their burden and the staff on their shoulders broken. What does it mean to those in the 21st century that a child was prophesied over 2,700 years ago who would take on governments, the most egregious evil that man can summon, and he's going to take it on? We argue over the importance of whether there is a form of salvation that can free us from pride and from arrogance of the heart that holds us prisoner to the personal desire and personal greed that we have. When we discover that darkness is the absence of light, evil is the absence of love, fear is the absence of fear. Fear is the absence of faith. When do we rejoice, and upon what do we find that will provide the security not only for today but for our future of His worship as well? The only lamp that we can hold up to enlighten us has to be that which will establish the throne and carry it through no matter what man does, no matter how man acts. The throne is something from Jehovah, not something that we came up with, not something that just there is a judgment seat. It is a throne to increase His governance of peace, to uphold His justice, to uphold His righteousness, to uphold His love and His grace and His power. So do we see the light that dispels the darkness? Do we see the righteousness that dispels evil? Do we see the faith that eliminates fear? Do we see it? Do we grab hold of it? Do we hold on to it? Is it in our hearts? Is it something that we share, that we want people to know? And from then on, forever, zeal, jealousy, great fervor of Jehovah will accomplish what the Lord of hosts, Jehovah Sabaoth, what the Lord of hosts has given in this prophecy that covers Isaiah 7, 9, 11. And finally, Finally, we glean from the word from Adonai in Isaiah 11:10 is that the whole earth and all its inhabitants. The goy, the domesticated, the beast will be gathered from the ends of the earth and stand together before the root of Jesse. See, did you hear that? Did you hear that in chapter 10? I'm sorry, that's why I can't find it. In chapter 11. I'm looking at it going, hey, this doesn't say that. All right, anyway. Righteousness will be the belt around his loins, and his faithfulness of the belt about his waist. And the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and the little boy will lead them, and the cow and the bear will graze, and the young will lie, and their young will lie down together. And the lion will eat straw like the ox, and the nursing child will play by the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child will put his hand on the viper's den. They will not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of Yehoshua. Before the flood, because after the flood, Jehovah told the sons of Noah that the animals were going to be afraid of them, that it was open for them to eat. We're going back. We're going home. And the whole earth and all of its inhabitants, the goyim, the domesticated, the beast, will all stand together before the root of Jesse, before the throne of David. The one with wisdom and counsel will be present to ensure that the will of Adonai will provide the sanctity of his creation. The restoration will reflect that of the garden before the flood. Is it impossible? Is it impossible to return the mantle of the Messiah to the love and the grace of the one who first bestowed it on the congregation, upon the church? So within the scope of the prophecies of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Micah, and Malachi, the resurrection of the true spirit of the entrance of the Christ would be sacrifice of self. Within the scope of the prophecies of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Micah, and Malachi, the resurrection of the true spirit of entrance of the Christ would be the sacrifice of self. The question is, are we ready to let go of the glitz and the glamour in favor of devotion and inspired meditation? Perhaps the better part of valor would be to abandon the holiday to the beginning of a new year. And less a time of new birth. Make a decision of what your intent of the heart expresses. Make your decision based on your true relationship with the Lord our righteousness. Closing hymn this morning is number 133. Hark the herald angels sing, number 133. servants depart in peace, according to your word. For our eyes have seen your salvation, which you have presented in the presence of all people, a light of revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel. Amen.